Today is Tuesday, March 21st, 2017. We are at the office of Vanessa, location at Marlboro College. My name is David Holzapfel. Today's production crew is Roxanne Burt on video camera, on video audio recorder, Rosalie Smith, and on still camera, Willow Romo.
Move this sound image, remove that.
I'd like to ask you a few questions about your personal background.
Okay.
Have you always lived in Marlboro, or did you move here from somewhere else?
I have not always lived in Marlboro. I did move here from somewhere else. Do you want to know where that is?
Yeah, I'd love to.
Okay. So I grew up in a rural county in southern New Jersey. But before I moved to Vermont, I was living in Maryland.
Okay. When did you move to Marlboro?
15 years ago.
Where do you live in town?
So we live on Auger Hole Road at the very edge of Marlboro, and it touches up against South Newfane.
Cool.
So way down Auger Hole.
Yeah.
Way down.
What are some reasons why you moved to Marlboro?
Yeah, well, it was actually a happy accident. We definitely knew that we wanted to live in Vermont, and when we started looking for houses, we were told that Newfane and Putney were really great places to live. And we'd found a house to rent, though, in Marlboro, and so we rented that house while we looked for homes, and we started to learn about Marlboro, and we really liked it.
Yeah. Why have you chosen to stay? Oh, you already answered it. What are your parents' names and what were their careers?
Wow. So my mom's maiden name is Jean Carol Hepner, and my father's name is Raymond Lee Miller. And what did they do? So my mom was a school teacher for many years before going into administration. Like, she became the vice principal of the middle school in a town near where I grew up. And then my dad worked for a company called Atlantic Aviation at the Philadelphia International Airport.
Wow, cool.
So he was a guy who would pull planes and fuel the big jetliners and things like that.
Cool.
Yeah.
How would you describe yourself when you were a child?
How would I describe myself when I was a child? I think I was very curious, very observant, but also very quiet. So even though I might have had a lot of observations and a lot of thoughts about things, I didn't necessarily share them.
How many brothers and sisters do you have, and what are their names?
So I have two older brothers, and their names are Michael and Jim.
Where do they live now?
They both live in New Jersey, still, closer to where I grew up, where we grew up.
What birth order are you among your siblings?
So I'm the third.
Okay.
So I'm the third of three. Boy, me.
What high school did you go to?
I went to a high school called Woodstown High School in Salem County, New Jersey.
What did you do during the summer between high school and going to college?
Oh, wow. What did I do that summer? Wow, you're asking me to dig back. Okay, so one thing I did that summer, I rented a house at the Jersey Shore with 3 of my girlfriends for a week.
Wow.
Which was really
cool.
fun. Yeah.
How would you describe yourself as a teenager or young adult, as opposed to yourself as a child?
Got it. I would still say pretty much what I said earlier. Quiet, inquisitive, curious, but lots of thoughts always flying through my head. I'm very observant, but not necessarily sharing them, at least, orally like this. I would write and things like that.
What college or university did you attend?
So I went to a college called Goucher College down in Towson, Maryland. and I graduated from there in 1991 with a bachelor's in economics.
Wow.
Yeah.
What was your plan?
Is that it? Economics? I beat you to it?
Yeah. During your work life, what jobs have you had aside from your current job at the college?
Yeah. So one of my first real jobs out of college was I worked in an accounting office for a Gannett newspaper, the News Journal in Newcastle, Wilmington, Delaware. Before that, I worked a summer for T. Rowe Price. They were converting investments for Marriott, retirement investment plans for Marriott employees. And I worked pretty much all through high school as well. But then once I graduated college, I worked in accounting, and then I worked in human resources, like helping to hire people and train people.
May I ask how old you are now?
Sure. Let me think about it. 48. 48, yeah.
What are your children's names?
So I have 3 sons. Their names are Mitchell, Mason, and Ritter. Although that's his nickname. Do you guys know his real name?
Yeah.
Okay, and he doesn't like his given name, so.
Who have been their teachers at Marlboro School?
Oh, wow. So Mitchell and Mason pretty much had the same teachers. Well, actually, hold on, I'll slow down. So for Mitchell, for all of them, they had Ellen in kindergarten. And for all of them, they had Judy in primary. The year, though, that Erica came, so Jody left and Erica came, and that was the year that Mitchell entered 4th grade, but then he bumped up to 5th grade. So Mason and Ritter had Erica, where Mitchell really didn't have Erica. And then Mitchell and Mason, for 5th and 6th grade, had David Holzapfel, whereas Ritter has Pamela Burke. And then I believe by the time Ritter gets to junior high, it'll still be Rachel Boyd and Tim Hayes.
What are each of them doing in their lives right now?
Good question. So Mitchell, my oldest son, is at Brandeis University, which is down in Waltham, Massachusetts. And so he graduated from Brattleboro Union High School, and then he went on to college. Mason is a sophomore at Brattleboro High School. And then Ritter, you know Ritter, right? Ritter's in class with you all.
What are some of the things about Marlboro School that you feel important to you as a parent at MES?
Yeah, I love Marlboro School, and I think when we first moved here, it was an adjustment for me because I had come up through a very traditional, if you will, school that was very, well, I say traditional. That's not really helpful, though, for you guys, I don't think. So I come up from a school that was very much about, you go to class, you show up, you sit up straight, you do the assignment that's put in front of you, you stand straight in the line, you walk along the edge of the hallway to gym class, and you go back to class, and you all sit in desks and face forward and complete assignments. And when we found Marlboro, I was really happy to see that, well, I'll tell you, I walked into kindergarten to meet Ellen, and Mitchell was with me. And she said, "I'm Ellen," and I said, "Hi, I'm Vanessa." And I turned to Mitchell and I said, "Mitchell, this is Miss Ellen. Can you say hello?" And she goes, "Oh, not Miss Ellen, just Ellen." And so the fact that Marlboro teachers go by their first names, right away that gave me an indication that this was a school that wasn't about titles and testing and things like that. It was much more personal and family-like. And I also see and have experienced for my kids that in Marlboro there's a lot of outside of the classroom learning, like right now, that you all are doing. And we didn't have a lot of this where I went to school. So I love those trips to New York City.
Yeah,
and
it's really fun.
Costa Rica and all of that. So,
Yeah. In August of 2011, Tropical Storm Irene came through Vermont. The lower Auger Hole Road, where you and your children live, was particularly hard hit by the storm. Would you please talk a bit about your experiences during that period? What happened, and how did your family cope with the devastation?
That was a very, almost unbelievable, surreal
Yeah.
experience. So it happened, I think it was August 28th, if I'm
I think it was, 'cause my birthday's September 1st, so
okay.
kind of a sad birthday.
So it was just a few days before school started that year, and Mitchell was going into 8th grade, Mason was going into 5th grade, and Ritter was going into 1st grade. And they actually ended up delaying school for, I think, 3 days. Instead of starting before Labor Day, we ended up starting after Labor Day. For 3 days, we were cut off from the outside completely. Any of the bridges that go over the waterways were damaged or had fallen.
Wow.
And so there was no communication with, all the phone lines were out, which includes internet. And we don't have cell phone signals where we live. So there was absolutely zero communication for 3 days. And my neighbors were actually hit a lot harder than we were. We live well off the road. I'd say like 1/10 of a mile off the road, and our driveway is very long. So at the end of our driveway, it got washed out quite a bit. Whereas our neighbors, Todd and Tara Brown, their basement was flooded.
Wow.
Which meant that their furnace was flooded. Our neighbors across the street from us, and on the other side of what is really a very small little stream called the Marlboro Branch, became a raging river.
Wow.
And that's Joanne and Chuck Boardman, and they have a bridge that crosses the river on 2 really huge steel I-beams. And that bridge was knocked out, and the steel I-beams were bent. And these steel I-beams are probably 30 or 40 feet long.
Wow.
And probably 2 feet high. And so these steel I-beams were bent, and their bridge collapsed, and all the decking went up the river, or down the river. And then the Shimmons, I think you all know Adelia and Annika, their basement was flooded, and their furnace was ruined, and yeah, so the flooding that happened as a result of Irene really did a lot of damage.
Yeah.
Gratefully not to us, because we're so far off the road and we're high up. But it also, I think, brought our community together in a really good way.
Yeah.
For a really bad reason.
Yeah.
But I remember we would walk around, and we could get over a bridge that had fallen on one end up Auger Hole, and we could walk in through the woods and take gasoline and water to our neighbors, Chuck and Joanne. And then eventually Todd and Tara, Todd's an excavator and a logger and self-employed, and he has big equipment, and he went over and took one of those steel I-beams that had bent, and he turned it kind of like in an arch over the river. So that's what we used to then walk over the river to get to Chuck and Joanne's, and they got out. Yeah, so it was a lot of neighbors helping neighbors. And then I think, and again it was Todd went down into South Newfane, where there's a big steel bridge, and one end of this huge steel bridge had fallen. And he kind of moved earth enough to create a little dirt ramp down to it, and that's how we got out.
Wow.
Whether it was safe or not, nobody was hurt, but we used that for after the 3rd day to get out around Baker Brook, which would put us out into South Newfane. And I think we were the last people, literally our family was the last family on Auger Hole Road to get phone service back, like 5 weeks later.
Wow. That's a lot.
Yeah. So it was quite an experience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now I have some work-related questions.
Okay.
I'd like to ask you some questions about your working life as the assistant to the president of Marlboro College.
Okay.
Have you learned what you need to know to be the assistant to the president? Did you study somewhere or with someone?
Have I learned what I need to know? As in, did I prepare for this?
Yeah.
Well, I think all my work experiences helped to prepare me for this job. I think that a variety of different people could do it, but given that I've had children and who've come up through the education system, given that I've worked in other jobs where I've worked with other people, working in human resources, specifically in organizational development, I think that it's all helped. I'm doing the on-the-job training that David mentioned earlier. So,
how long have you been an assistant?
So do you know what I realized today? Today is my 1-year anniversary
Wow.
for being in this job. So,
Wow.
yay! Yep, so 1 year.
Awesome. What's the president's name?
So the president is Kevin F. Quigley, and he goes by President Kevin. Yeah, he's quite, he would fit in at Marlboro Elementary School pretty well.
What are some reasons why you applied for the job?
Yeah. Why did I apply? Well, when the opportunity became available, I wasn't actually looking for a job. I was working as a bookkeeper, or the bookkeeper for the Greenwood School in Putney, Vermont, just east of here. And a friend of mine, Sarah Coffey, you know Sarah?
I know her.
Yeah, well, she was on the board here at the college. The college has a board of trustees, and she was a trustee for a while. And she stays in contact with people here, and she knows me because her children have come up through Marlboro too. And she let me know about it, so I looked at the job description and I checked it out, and I thought, wow, that would be a really interesting role, to meet new people, to be part of the college. And I've admired the college from arm's length for as long as I've lived here.
Wow.
So I was actually really happy for the opportunity. Yeah.
How would you describe your job?
How would I describe it? For my job, it is a lot of scheduling, managing details. It's a lot of knowing a little bit about a bazillion things. So, Kevin, President Kevin, anything that has to do with his calendar, which pretty much all of his work-related meetings, events, dinners, luncheons, traveling, anything like that, I have a hand in helping to coordinate or schedule it or plan it or reserve a room, reserve transportation, all of that. So, did I answer that? I kind of got some.
Yeah.
Okay.
What are some different things you do in the job other than scheduling?
Okay. So, like on a daily basis, I will respond to emails, and they could be coming from inside the college, from faculty, staff, or students. They could be coming from outside the college for meetings or conferences he needs to attend, regulatory agencies, or accreditation agency. What are some other things I do? I'll work on special projects for him. For example, Wednesday, March 8th was National Women's Day, and we had a gathering down in the Snyder Center for Visual Arts. 2 of our staff had attended the Women's National March on Washington back in January. Actually, several of them did, and 2 of them, one took photographs, and one kind of found quotes that were fitting to accompany the photographs, and made a showing in the Snyder Arts Center. And someone mentioned during that gathering that day on Wednesday, March 8th, that Sophie Cruz, who's a very young activist speaking up for immigrants and undocumented workers, that she was at the march and we were having a conversation about her, and Kevin said, let's offer her a full scholarship to Marlboro.
Wow.
Right, so Kevin says to me, well, Vanessa, why don't you draft a letter to Sophie, letting her know this.
How old is she?
She's 7 right now.
Oh my God.
Right? So she's 7, and I didn't know who she was until a few weeks ago. So, did you get me? No. I didn't know who she was, so I had to research her. But I'll draft a letter for him to edit.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I will draft correspondence. I also participate in the senior team. I'm part of his senior team. So we have bi-weekly meetings, and I'll draft agendas and take minutes and follow up on that. And then I have a lot of interaction with our board of trustees. So there's 20 people who serve as our board currently, and then Kevin is also a trustee ex officio, that means by order of his office. But I will communicate with the trustees around board meetings, which happen 4 times a year, and then there are lots of events that go along with the board meetings. There's a trustees' tea where the students get to meet the trustees. There's a dinner with the trustees. I'll coordinate committee calls and meetings of the board. So the board has various committees like finance. So when our CFO over there, Ann, and the director of the finance committee want to have a meeting with that committee of the board, I poll those, it's probably about 5 to 8 people per committee, some are larger, and I poll them for a good day and a good time and send out materials, prepare the board books, communicate information to them about what's going on at the college, things like that.
Knowing what to do as the assistant is one thing, but you've also got to interact
Okay.
with a lot of people who need information. Those can be 2 different skills. How have you learned to do them both?
To interact with people who need information. So interacting with people and providing information. Okay. Well, I think naturally I'm a people person, in that I enjoy people. I mean, I can also enjoy working by myself and working alone and accomplishing a task. I think that I'm pretty open and pretty accepting of people and have generally speaking, a warm personality. So I don't find it difficult to interact with people here. In fact, I find it quite easy. And that would go for staff as well as faculty and students. Yeah.
Aside from the work you do in your office, are there other duties and responsibilities you have as the assistant to the president?
So some of the things I'm involved in is coordinating events, certain events. So for example, we have commencement coming up. So commencement is graduation. That's when all the undergraduate as well as our graduate students will graduate in May. And so commencement's a pretty big event. It's pretty much an all hands on deck event. So I'm absolutely not the only person involved, but there are certain pieces of it that I need to do. For example, I order the regalia for the trustees, and I order the flowers for the stage. I coordinate with our dining hall about food. And then lots of other people do lots of other things for commencement. Something else, though, that I actually was just working on today is we have a senior dinner. So this is a few days before graduation. We host the seniors and all the graduating seniors and all of the faculty. This year it will be down at the Brattleboro Museum on a Thursday in May, and so I've just begun to coordinate those details. I reached out to people. There's a caterer and there's a a wine and beer person, and there's the rentals for the tables and the chairs and all that. There's communicating with the museum about what forms do they need filled out for liability purposes. So events like that are things that I'm involved in.
What are some of the reasons why you've continued to work here? What is it about the job that keeps you interested?
Well, I like the people, and I like being part of a learning community. And I think that Marlboro College, the mission of deep learning and critical thinking is really important to me personally too. And I like that. So I like the environment where I work, and I really like the people that I work with. And I think the job is varied enough that it keeps me interested. So it's nice that I'm not doing the very same thing every day. Yeah.
What are some of the benefits for you of living and working in the same town?
Well, it definitely makes for a short commute, which I really like. Benefits for living and working in the same town. And I like that I'm close by to where my kids are. I mean, of course, once they go to high school, it's a little harder to juggle transportation between Marlboro and Brattleboro, given that we don't have high school transportation. But I think, I think it goes a long way to me feeling like I'm an active part of the community.
Are there any downsides to it?
To living and working both in the same town? Any downsides? Well, let me say one more upside. So, because the downside I think of is, well, everybody knows everything that's going on with your life. But that's not always the case. But an upside is that, when President Kevin has a question, I'll say, well, I'll call Forrest Holzapfel. I'll call the town clerk, or let me check with this person. And so one benefit is knowing who's who in town. And so having lived here, it's really helpful to know, oh yeah, I know Gussie Bartlett. Okay, I can reach out to Dan MacArthur. And so that's actually really helpful.
What are some of the challenges of facing family life and work life? What do you how do you, that you must deal with?
Balancing?
Yeah, balancing.
Balancing family and work life. It is very tough in that I work full time and I'm a single mom. And I think the biggest challenge is transportation, because we don't have transportation provided by Brattleboro High School for our high schoolers. Another challenge that I struggle with personally is knowing that Ritter gets home off the bus probably about 3:30, and I don't get home until 5, and I feel badly about that as a parent because he's home alone a lot. And then if there are errands to run, grocery shopping, and things to do after work, that one leaves me not feeling so great. But I think in general I make it work.
What people or ideas or experiences would you say have influenced your thoughts and practices in performing your job?
Okay, can you read that one again?
What people or ideas or experiences would you say have influenced your thoughts and practices in performing your job? So, has anyone influenced you?
Well, it's interesting. I have a deeper appreciation for what my mother did as a single working mom with 3 children. I don't think as young people we have that appreciation, or if we think we do. So I would say that she influences me in that, and I'm conscious of trying to do it even better than she did. Who's influenced me? I mean, I think of things I've read and studied, and I think, just generally speaking, has influenced me in my work? All right, I might have to think on that, because my immediate answer is I think I've been influenced by everything that's happened in my life. If I sit here and try to single out particular people, I'm having a harder time with that. But I think that in general, I think about people in my life who I've enjoyed working with and interacting with, and thinking, well, what made them easy to work with or enjoyable to work with. I shouldn't say easy, I should say enjoyable, because I think that we should be challenged in our work and not be surrounded by, just yes men. I think we should challenge each other and question and ask. And so I think that idea of being curious and asking questions and being kind, but not kind to a fault, being direct and kind. So that's my general answer. I'll have to let that one percolate back here and think about who specifically. All right.
Would you please describe a typical day from when you get up in the morning on a work day until you go to bed at night?
A typical day. Okay, I can barely remember what I did yesterday. No, a typical day. Typical day, I get up around 5:45. I probably hit snooze at least once, maybe twice. So, I bring in wood, I stoke the fire, I empty the dishwasher, I feed the cat, I fold some laundry, I pay a bill or two, I look at my day planner. I'm still very much a paper person about who's going where and what time do they need to be there as far as my children. So before they walk out of the house in the morning, I know they all know what the after-school plan is. Then I make sure my kids get up. There's only 2 of them at home now. And I try to spend a little time with Ritter. Mason gets out of bed very late, so Ritter and I tend to sit on the living room floor in front of the wood stove and have toast, coffee. Nice. Well, I have coffee. And then by 7:35, they're out the door. Pull the rest of myself together. So I've showered, I've dressed, I've done a few more little chores around the house, and I'm at work by 8:30. And then after work, there are days where I go home. There are days where I have appointments. There are days where I do ride share with people. Mason's involved in the New England Youth Theater. So I've been ride sharing with your mom actually to do pickup. A few weeks ago I had parent conferences at Brattleboro High School for Mason, so I went there. I made sure he had a ride home, and I went directly to Brattleboro. So some nights, on a good night I'm home by 5:30. On other nights I'm home by 7:30. If I've had an appointment in Brattleboro, or if I've gone grocery shopping or something like that. At which point I get home and I usually cook dinner. Did that last night, cooked dinner, and Mason, Ritter, and I sat together for dinner and talked about what we needed to get done. And he's applying for the Governor's Institute, and Mom, you need to fill out the financial aid application. Okay, I'll do that. So after dinner, I helped Ritter. Ritter's learning how to do his laundry by himself.
Oh, that's a good skill.
You can tell him about that. You think that's funny? Well, he and Mason used to share a room, so Mason and he would do their laundry collectively. But then when Mitchell went to college, Mason and I repainted Mitchell's old room, and Mason's moved into the other room by himself. So Ritter's now by himself, so I thought, okay, Ritter, you're going to learn how to do laundry by yourself. So
how's it going?
So he brought his laundry down, and we were at the washing machine, and I just wanted to make sure he knew how to check to make sure the size and the temperature. So he got his laundry going. Okay, good. Then I had to, I'm like, Mason, he was upstairs, I was downstairs, Mason, give me that GIV information. How do I log in? Where am I supposed? So then he brought that down, and so then I sat and filled out that, and responded, filled all that out, and actually not responded to, I had to send an email because I had some questions. And then, what did I do? And while I was doing that, Ritter was sitting right there doing his homework. So he was getting his homework done, because why wasn't he doing his homework before that? See, I'd have to look at my day planner and see what he did after school yesterday that he wasn't doing his homework till later. But anyway, he did his homework, and when he was done, he and I have been trying to read together every night. So we're reading Septimus Heap. Have you guys read that?
Yeah, I've heard of that.
By Angie Sage. So we're reading that. So, of course, he procrastinates, and he goes and runs in Mason's room, and so we hang out in Mason's room for a little bit. And then we finally make it back to Ritter's room, and I start to read, and he's crazy. I know Ritter. He's crazy and distracted and procrastinating. And so I try to read, and I think within, 5 paragraphs, I was falling asleep. So I said, Ritter, here, you have to read. He's like, oh, Mom, you're not even going to know what I've read. You're just going to have to reread it. I'm like, that's okay, you read it. And honestly, I can't remember if he read or not because I fell asleep. So then I woke up about 11:30, I think, and I went back down to my own room, stoked the fire, put away the food from dinner because it still was not put away. 11:30 at night, put the food, at least I got the food in the refrigerator, and I did the dishes this morning.
Oh,
yeah. So
that happens some nights.
There you go. That was my night yesterday.
In your opinion, what are some of the difficulties that small colleges face today?
In my opinion, some of the difficulties they face. Well, they definitely face a financial difficulty, given that their enrollment numbers are lower, and there's still a decent amount of overhead that's given for any institution. I think, too, that sometimes there's hype about what a good education is, what a good college education is, and I think that, so Marlboro's approach is very simplistic, very Socratic, in that it's like, they describe it as a bench, a book, a teacher, a student, like it's very simplified. And also, so we're looking for students who really are more about critical thinking, deep and broad thinking, and not, a great sports program or a really cool indoor swimming pool or things like that. Our college specifically, we also are faced with weather. A lot of weather in New England. Like a week ago, there was 1.5 feet of snow. That storm that came through, and so we fortunately are on spring break right now, so the students weren't on campus last week or this week. But I think that's another challenge specific to Marlboro, is the students who come here need to be open to all kinds of weather. And it's it's a benefit too, because you can be outdoors and enjoy a lot of nature here. But I think, enrollment and finances are big challenges for all schools, but particularly small liberal arts schools.
What are some of your interests in outside of work?
I love reading, so fiction as well as nonfiction. I usually have at least one book going, sometimes two. I can do a nonfiction and a fiction at the same time, but I can't do two fictions at the same time. Well, I probably could, but I try not to do that. So I love reading. Barbara Kingsolver is one of my favorite authors, and I just finished reading Flight Behavior, which was a really interesting read about the monarch migration and what has happened to their wintering lands in Mexico. And so I like reading, and I like writing, although I don't do it a lot, but I have some story ideas kind of bouncing around in the back of my head. So, and I like hiking. Like I like nothing crazy. I don't do like Appalachian Trail, you know, week-long hikes or anything like that. But I like getting out and doing hikes. So I just did Black Mountain again for the first time in a while. So anyway, yeah.
Is there anything else about your life in town or at work that I did not mention that you would like to mention?
I think you've done a good job. My life in town and work. Well, I think that Marlboro is a really wonderful place to raise a family, and I really love our elementary school. And I hope that we're able to retain our junior high, our 7th and 8th grade, given the current issues surrounding Act 46. I'd also love to see Marlboro grow in population, though. I think that there's a benefit to being a little larger, and I know a lot of families have mentioned to me over the years that they'd love to live in Marlboro, but there are a lot of houses available. And I think that growth would be a good thing for the town, in population as well as in stores and services and things like that. For example, our dean of students was kind of kidding the other day with me, not kidding about this. So he was saying, he moved here from Oregon, and he said, gosh, you have to travel all the way down to Brattleboro to get a half a gallon of soy milk, or to, buy some crackers, and we really need a store here. And we used to have a store, we used to have Sweeties, and so that's closed down. And I would love to see there be a convenience store, a general store, not a convenience store like 7-Eleven or anything, but a general store to replace Sweeties. And I'd love to see other types of small businesses be able to grow here in Marlboro. And I'd love to see more of a community center. I know that idea was thrown out for discussion over the years. There have been some talk about maybe having it be at Hogback a few years back, but I would love for there to be more of a community gathering place, but for fun things too, for kids to be able to hang out and get together as groups and do things, as well as for more family-oriented and adult things. So, yeah.
Well, thank you very much for your time.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been fun. All right.
Can you guys smile together?
Yeah, sure.
Ready?
I don't smile.
Yes, she does.
Perfecto.
Perfect.
How'd I do?
You did great.
All right. So do you all now listen to this, or is that what the other part
That's
is?
the other.
It's
They
their
watch
problem.
it and they need to. Do
We make it and they just
Why?
they edit it together?
Yes. Yeah. I think it's like a 3-minute video.
Oh, okay. Because I clicked on only I clicked on the Louise Paget. David sent me a link, and I clicked on that one, but I wasn't able to watch it for very long, so I didn't actually know how long it was.
Yeah, they're quite short, but the whole thing is at the Historical Society.
Right, and I think that's what this was. It was the unedited, just raw.
Yeah, they can be a little rough.